0. Teachers already deal with wild kids, but sometimes the real chaos comes from their parents. From lawsuits over fidget spinners to complaints about the smell of pencils, these parents turned ordinary classrooms into full-blown comedy sketches. Let's count down 69 of the dumbest parent complaints about teachers ever recorded. Number 1. Some parents see lined paper and immediately declare war on creativity. One mother was absolutely furious that her child's class still used standard lined worksheets, claiming the horizontal rules were constraining free thought at the page level. She genuinely believed the lines were training children to think in narrow boxes. The teacher had to explain that lined paper mostly helps young kids write in straight rows. She still acted like penmanship was one step away from ideological oppression. Number 2. Lowercase letters have apparently become a status issue now. One parent complained that the teacher introduced lowercase too early and said capitals felt more prestigious, more confident, and frankly more leadership-oriented. She genuinely believed starting with little letters was lowering her child's academic self-image before first grade had even finished settling in. The teacher had to explain that lowercase letters appear in, unfortunately, almost all normal reading. She still treated the alphabet like a branding failure. Number 3. Classroom fish tanks are apparently dangerous gateways now. One father was absolutely furious that the small tank in the room had made his son too interested in marine biology, as if curiosity itself had become a scheduling problem. He genuinely believed the teacher had introduced an unauthorized academic obsession without family approval. The teacher had to explain that the child mostly liked watching the fish swim in circles. He still acted like one goldfish had derailed a carefully planned career path. Number 4. Even the word friends is not safe anymore. One mother complained that the teacher addressed the class as friends, calling it socially presumptive and emotionally overfamiliar. She genuinely believed children should decide for themselves whether they felt bonded enough to deserve that label. The teacher had to explain that friends was just a warm classroom term, not a legally binding social contract. She still treated basic friendliness like a subtle act of relationship fraud. Number 5. Analog clocks apparently now count as educational clutter. One parent demanded the school stop teaching time on old wall clocks because children, in her words, live in a digital world and should not be dragged backward by circle-based time systems. She genuinely believed clock hands created unnecessary confusion and low-level resentment toward time itself. The teacher had to explain that learning both formats is useful. She still acted like the minute hand was a relic of academic cruelty. Number 6. Attendance has somehow become a civil liberties issue. One father complained that morning roll call made his son feel surveilled and said hearing his name called in front of the class created low-stakes institutional pressure. He genuinely believed the student should be able to arrive without being publicly confirmed as present. The teacher had to explain that schools generally like to know which children are physically in the room. He still treated the roster like a privacy scandal. Number 7. Smiley face stickers are apparently rewarding mediocrity now. One parent was absolutely furious that the teacher used cheerful little stickers on worksheets because, in her view, visual praise for basic effort was creating a generation hooked on cartoon approval. She genuinely believed each smiley face lowered the future market value of real achievement. The teacher had to explain that 6-year-olds usually enjoy stickers and do not yet need performance reviews. She still wanted a stricter merit economy for first grade. Number 8. Even weather books are now expected to stay on theme. One mother complained that the teacher read a book about rain and clouds on a bright sunny day, which she said created environmental inconsistency and confused her child's sense of atmospheric alignment. She genuinely believed literacy materials should match the sky outside in real time. The teacher had to explain that books are not usually scheduled by barometric pressure. She still blamed the lesson for failing to cooperate with the forecast. Number 9. Rainbow crafts have apparently become too controlling for some families. One parent complained that a classroom rainbow project imposed color sequencing expectations on her child and subtly taught that colors must appear in the same order every time. She genuinely believed this limited expressive freedom and visual self-determination. The teacher had to explain that the activity was about identifying colors, not enforcing chromatic obedience. She still treated a paper rainbow like a quiet act of artistic authoritarianism. Number 10. Some teachers are apparently guilty of writing too nicely. One mother complained that the teacher's handwriting on the board was distractingly pretty and made her daughter feel self-conscious about her own letters. She genuinely believed neat marker script created an unfair visual standard inside the classroom. The teacher had to explain that writing legibly on the board is generally considered useful. She still acted like attractive penmanship had crossed into psychological warfare. Number 11. Some parents hear history class and expect a bright, uplifting TED Talk about tomorrow. One mother filed a formal complaint because her son's history teacher was, in her words, teaching things that already happened. She genuinely believed the Civil War was too negative for a growing mind and wanted the curriculum updated with more cheerful material. The teacher had to explain that history is, by nature, mostly about the past. She still treated chronology like a design flaw. Number 12. Photosynthesis has apparently become anti-carnivore propaganda now. One father sent an enraged email after his daughter failed a biology test on how plants make food. He genuinely believed teaching plant biology was a direct attack on his family's meat-eating lifestyle and demanded an alternative assignment about apex predators instead. The teacher had to explain that leaves existing is not a political statement. He still acted like chlorophyll had been weaponized against steak. Number 13. Red pens keep getting blamed for crimes they are simply not emotionally equipped to commit. One parent complained that the teacher's use of red ink was psychologically aggressive and causing her artistic son severe anxiety. She even attached questionable wellness blog research like she had built a case. The teacher had to explain that corrections need to be visible. The parent still wanted every error rewritten in glitter gel pen with affirming language, even when the answer was spectacularly wrong. Number 14. Gym class remains deeply unfair to children who dislike movement. One father complained that the PE teacher was making class too focused on physical activity because his son came home tired and sweaty every Tuesday. He genuinely believed dodgeball and laps were excessive and suggested replacing them with mindful walking and competitive breathing. The teacher had to explain that PE stands for physical education, not passive existence. He still treated perspiration like a curriculum failure. Number 15. Static electricity became witchcraft the moment one parent got involved. After a simple classroom science demo where kids rubbed balloons on their hair, a mother called the school in a panic and accused the teacher of performing dark magic. She genuinely believed the floating hair effect suggested occult involvement and wanted the school to investigate for hidden warts and suspicious cat energy. The teacher had to explain static electricity to someone mentally living in the 1600s. It did not help. Number 16. Fairy tales are apparently now dangerous misinformation. One mother complained that reading stories like Cinderella and Jack and the Beanstalk was giving her son unrealistic expectations about life, including the possibility of magic pumpkins and talking animals. She demanded more practical reading, preferably appliance manuals or tax-related documents. The teacher had to explain that stories are not usually mistaken for legal truth by children. The parent still treated bedtime imagination like an early-stage financial delusion. Number 17. Music class got dragged into one father's extremely specific nostalgia problem. A teacher received a complaint for using a Beatles song because the parent insisted his child should only be exposed to real music, which in his mind meant exclusively 1980s hair metal. He even sent in a homemade playlist like he was rescuing the curriculum. The teacher had to explain that music class is not built around one dad's aging playlist identity. He still acted like the Beatles were educational malpractice. Number 18. Some vacations go badly and then somehow become curriculum policy. After a geography lesson, one mother demanded the teacher stop teaching her daughter about France because she had personally had a terrible trip to Paris years earlier. She genuinely believed the country was rude, overpriced, and not worth acknowledging in school. The teacher had to explain that world maps are not edited around one family's travel trauma. She still wanted France replaced with a blank emotional zone. Number 19. Nap time got rebranded as moral weakness the second one parent discovered it existed. A kindergarten teacher introduced a short, quiet rest period, and a hardcore fitness parent complained that it was promoting laziness and an early dependence on inactivity. She suggested replacing the rest mats with toddler burpees and, quote, micro workouts. The teacher had to explain that 5-year-olds are allowed to sit down sometimes. The parents still acted like calm breathing was the first step towards societal collapse. Number 20. Shakespeare keeps offending people who think difficulty is a class issue. One father complained that teaching Old English was exclusionary because his son could not understand the text immediately by looking at it. He demanded the class switch to something more relatable, like the scripts from Fast and Furious. The teacher had to explain that literature classes sometimes involve language students need help unpacking. He still treated complexity like elitism in a costume collar. Number 21. Algebra keeps terrifying parents who think numbers should stay in their lane. One father marched into a meeting completely unhinged because the teacher had started mixing letters with math. He demanded to know why a simple equation needed an x at all and suggested replacing variables with something more intuitive, like a smiling poop emoji. The teacher had to explain that letters represent unknown values. He still treated the alphabet like a dangerous gateway drug. Number 22. A teacher holding a margarita on vacation apparently now counts as a curriculum issue. One parent found a summer photo on social media and filed a complaint, claiming the teacher was promoting a decadent alcoholic lifestyle to impressionable children. The teacher had to explain that she was off-duty, on a beach, and not hosting tequila tastings in homeroom. The parent still wanted a committee to pre-approve future vacation photos for moral blandness. Number 23. Field trips to farms keep disappointing people who expected nature without the nature part. One mother complained that the smell of a dairy farm had emotionally scarred her son and violated his personal airspace. She demanded the school stop exposing children to raw, outdoor reality and suggested future nature trips be done through VR instead. The teacher had to explain that cows tend to come with authentic smell. She still acted like the planet needed better customer service. Number 24. Art class remains deeply dangerous to anyone wearing designer clothing with unrealistic expectations. One mother filed a formal complaint after her son came home with a tiny washable paint smudge on his shirt. She even sent an invoice for textile damage and suggested all future art classes become fully paint-free, brush-free, and basically art-free. The teacher had to explain that children making things sometimes involves mess. She still treated washable paint like a felony against luxury cotton. Number 25. Some parents hear "no toys in class" and immediately start drafting fake legislation. One father stormed in after a teacher confiscated his son's fidget spinner and threatened a lawsuit, claiming it was a certified emotional support device protected under rights he seemed to invent in traffic. The teacher had to explain that the toy had been distracting the whole class. He still acted like basic classroom rules had violated an international treaty on finger freedom. Number 26. Homework apparently becomes wage theft the second it lasts longer than a cartoon episode. One father filed a complaint, arguing that 20 minutes of nightly homework amounted to uncompensated child labor, and even arrived with a spreadsheet calculating back pay at minimum wage. He had factored in overtime for one particularly difficult worksheet. The teacher had to explain that practice work is part of school, not an illegal internship. He still wanted payroll for multiplication. Number 27. Class pets keep triggering bizarre career panic in people who need to relax immediately. One mother demanded the classroom hamster be removed because seeing it run on a wheel was, in her mind, teaching her son that repetitive motion without progress was a valid life path. She genuinely worried this would derail his future and push him toward professional pointlessness. The teacher had to explain that the hamster was a hamster. She still saw it as a cautionary career influence. Number 28. World maps have started offending people who think geography should flatter them personally. One father complained that the United States was not in the center of the classroom map and called it subtle anti-American propaganda. He wanted a more accurate version where Kansas sat in the middle of the world because that felt fairer. The teacher had to explain that maps do not revolve around his home state emotionally or physically. He still blamed the projection for lacking patriotism. Number 29. School water fountains are apparently now responsible for children's spiritual hydration balance. One mother complained that the regular tap water was too acidic and was disrupting her son's pH and learning potential. She demanded the school install a reverse osmosis alkaline water system for all students and sent a long PDF on hydration purity. The principal had to explain that the fountain dispensed ordinary safe water. She still acted like the hallway sink was running a chemical attack. Number 30. Safety policies somehow become tyranny the second lunch preferences get involved. When the school went nut-free to protect a child with a severe allergy, one father wrote a furious email claiming his son's constitutional right to a peanut butter sandwich had been violated. He genuinely placed lunch choice on the same level as civil liberty. The teacher had to explain that keeping another child alive outweighed one boy's preferred spread. He still treated peanut butter like protected speech. Number 31. School picture day somehow turned one loose hair into a federal case. One mother demanded a full retake because a single strand in her son's photo was out of place, and she blamed the teacher for failing to act as an on-set stylist. She genuinely believed classroom staff should have monitored each child's brand presentation before the shutter clicked. The teacher had to explain that she was supervising 25 kids, not producing a luxury headshot campaign. Number 32. Apparently, even a teacher's skeleton can now be considered unprofessional. One parent complained that a kindergarten teacher was too tall and physically intimidating for small children, creating what she called an unapproachable power dynamic. Her solution was that the teacher should conduct lessons while sitting on a low stool or kneeling full-time to stay at eye level. The principal had to explain that height is not a classroom policy choice. She still treated bone structure like misconduct. Number 33. School bells keep getting accused of ideological violence. One father filed a complaint claiming the bell system was authoritarian and trained children to become obedient cogs in a machine. He proposed replacing it with a more intuitive method, where teachers would simply sense when learning had organically concluded. The staff had to explain that schedules exist because schools run on time, not spiritual intuition. He still acted like a hallway bell was the first step toward industrial oppression. Number 34. Nothing says overparenting like demanding a script rewrite over tree number 2. One mother lost her mind when her son was cast as a tree in the school play and insisted the role was planting lifelong mediocrity in his psyche. She demanded the play be revised to give the tree a heroic monologue so he would not internalize background energy. The teacher had to explain that it was third-grade theater, not career forecasting. She still wanted a stronger arc for Bark. Number 35. Some parents really think phonics should accommodate their branding concerns. One father complained that the teacher's last name had too many consonants and was causing his child unnecessary phonetic stress. He suggested the teacher legally simplify it, or at least adopt a classroom stage name like Mr. W for ease of use. The teacher had to explain that names are part of real life and children can learn them. He still treated pronunciation like an unreasonable academic burden. Number 36. Bulletin boards are apparently now subject to spiritual code enforcement. One teacher kept finding her classroom display rearranged overnight, only to discover a parent had been sneaking in after hours to correct the energy flow. The parent claimed the original setup created a vortex of negative chi over the math corner and even placed crystals near the whiteboard. The school had to explain that classroom decor was not open to freelance metaphysical intervention. She still considered herself a consultant. Number 37. Lost and found logic has gone fully noir in some households. One father accused a teacher of running a black market mitten operation after his son came home missing one glove from recess. He demanded access to security footage to trace the mitten's final known movements and acted like the school was covering something up. The teacher had to explain that children lose things constantly. He still treated the missing winterwear like evidence in a textile conspiracy. Number 38. Even playground slides are not safe from long-range parenting hysteria. One father complained that the slide was too fast and was training children to chase adrenaline instead of preparing for the slow pace of office life. He genuinely believed a few seconds of harmless fun could ruin his son's future corporate discipline. The teacher had to explain that recess equipment is meant to be enjoyable. He still saw the slide as a gateway drug to thrill-seeking. Number 39. Valentine's Day cards somehow became a full theory of emotional capitalism. One mother complained that the classroom card exchange taught children to quantify affection and reduce friendship to transactional paper rectangles. She quoted a sociologist who may or may not have existed and treated candy hearts like ideological conditioning. The teacher had to explain that 6-year-olds mostly enjoy stickers and sugar. She still acted like the holiday had quietly introduced Wall Street into homeroom. Number 40. Lunchbox smells have become a civil rights issue for picky families. One parent complained that another student's homemade curry was too aromatic and distracting her son from multiplication. Rather than moving her child or teaching resilience, she demanded a scent-free lunch zone where only bland, nearly odorless foods would be allowed. The teacher had to explain that classrooms include many families and many lunches. She still wanted the cafeteria rewritten around plain crackers and emotional fragility. Number 41. Apparently, even bricks can now suppress academic greatness. One parent, a self-appointed color theorist, complained that the school's beige-adjacent exterior was stifling creativity and lowering student dopamine. He demanded the entire building be repainted teal to unlock intellectual potential. The administration had to explain that the walls were there to keep weather out, not optimize imagination. He still treated the campus like a sad mood board with attendance. Number 42. One music teacher got reviewed for having the wrong voice, which is a bold complaint in a profession built around sound. A parent claimed her speaking pitch was 20 hertz away from the ideal learning frequency and brought an app to prove it. She genuinely believed the teacher's vocal cords were harming concentration. The principal had to explain that class is not tuned like a wellness podcast. She still wanted a staff-wide acoustic upgrade. Number 43. School libraries have apparently become too historical for certain parents. One father complained that the books smelled old and touched by too many unknown hands, which in his mind made the whole collection intellectually stale and unhygienic. He wanted every book replaced yearly with brand new, shrink-wrapped copies. The librarian had to explain that books are meant to be read more than once. He still treated page wear like an outbreak. Number 44. Email timing has become a crisis for people who think teachers are a 24-hour concierge desk. One parent was absolutely furious that a teacher did not respond to an email sent at 2:37 a.m. until 7 a.m. The emergency was a question about a field trip permission slip due 3 weeks later. The teacher had to explain nothing because the timeline itself was already humiliating. The parent still acted like Dawn had arrived irresponsibly late. Number 45. Wi-Fi has now entered the parenting fear catalog, right beside sugar and screen time. One mother showed up with an EMF meter and demanded the school shut off wireless internet immediately because the signals were scrambling her child's brainwaves. She proposed hardwiring hundreds of desks with Ethernet instead. The staff had to explain that the school needed functioning internet in the current century. She still treated routers like glowing little mind erasers mounted in hallways. Number 46. Winning is apparently now just another way to hurt feelings. After her son won the 50-yard dash on field day, one mother filed a complaint because celebrating his victory, in her view, damaged the self-esteem of slower children. She genuinely believed a winner created 100 tiny emotional losses. The teacher had to explain that races generally involve outcomes. She still acted like first place was a form of organized emotional exclusion. Number 47. Dinosaurs continue to offend people who think fossils are a museum marketing plan. One parent physically removed her child from science class and later complained that dinosaurs are a hoax, invented to sell museum tickets. She demanded the teacher stop pushing the dinosaur agenda and present fossils as strangely shaped rocks instead. The teacher had to explain that paleontology is real. She still looked like the Brontosaurus was part of a global scam. Number 48. Typography has officially entered the complaint economy. One parent, a graphic designer, wrote a long email insisting the teacher's use of Times New Roman on a class handout was typographically hostile and subconsciously oppressive. She demanded all future documents be switched to Comic Sans for a more whimsical educational journey. The teacher had to explain that the assignment was about literature, not font therapy. She still treated serifs like emotional spikes. Number 49. Creative writing apparently now counts as rehearsal for deception. One mother complained after her son wrote a story about being a secret agent, claiming the assignment was encouraging him to lie. She genuinely believed fictional storytelling was a gateway to dishonesty at home. The teacher had to explain that imagination and chores are not part of the same legal category. She still acted like a spy story was the first domino in a household ethics collapse. Number 50. Carpool pickup has inspired more fake logistics experts than actual traffic school. One father submitted a 14-page improvement plan for the car line, complete with flowcharts, timing studies, and just-in-time student retrieval concepts, like he was redesigning an Amazon warehouse. The principal had to explain that pickup was functioning fine for a school with children, not pallets. He still treated minivans and backpacks like an operations management emergency. Number 51. Even fake spiderwebs were not safe from adult panic. One parent demanded a teacher remove cotton Halloween webs because they triggered her arachnophobia, and she insisted her fear did not distinguish between real spiders and decorative fluff. The teacher had to explain that the webs were made of soft, white cotton and had no actual spiders involved. She still treated arts and crafts decor like the classroom had opened a portal to her nightmare. Number 52. A coffee mug became a full moral crisis because apparently caffeine now needs a school board review. One parent complained about a teacher's mug that said, "Don't talk to me before I've had my coffee," claiming it promoted substance dependency to students. She suggested replacing it with something about natural energy from sleep. The teacher had to explain nothing. The mug was on a desk, not leading a public awareness campaign for espresso. Number 53. Dress codes now apparently threaten personhood. One father was furious that his son had to remove a baseball cap in class and argued the hat was central to the boy's identity. He genuinely described the cap like it was a constitutional extension of selfhood. The teacher had to explain that the no hats rule applied to everyone. He still acted like asking for basic compliance was equivalent to peeling identity off his child's head. Number 54. Timeout has apparently become a legal matter now. After a 6-year-old spent 3 minutes at a calm-down desk for throwing crayons, his mother called the school threatening to report the teacher for unlawful detainment and false imprisonment. The teacher had to explain that a separate desk inside the classroom is not a prison system. She still treated one quiet chair like a civil rights landmark case waiting to happen. Number 55. Field trip buses are now being judged for cinematography. One parent complained that the windows on the school bus were too small and grimy to provide a sufficiently educational visual experience on the way to a museum. She wanted a luxury coach with panoramic glass so the journey itself would feel more enriching. The school had to explain that the actual learning destination was the museum. She still blamed transportation for lacking documentary-level production value. Number 56. Recess has apparently become an operational failure in the eyes of people who hate unstructured joy. One parent complained that 20 minutes of free play was a chaotic void of unproductivity and submitted a detailed timed schedule for strategic socializing and cardio optimization. The teacher had to explain that recess exists so kids can run around and breathe, not attend a tiny leadership retreat. He still wanted play to feel more corporate. Number 57. Some parents see a teacher's old car and immediately start writing a branding memo. One mother complained that the teacher's beat-up 15-year-old vehicle in the school lot sent a bad message to students about the financial future of education. She did not offer help. She simply wanted him to park it off campus so children would not connect teaching with modest pay. The school had to explain that the parking lot was not a luxury lifestyle brochure. Number 58. Gluten has now entered the paranormal stage of parenting discourse. One mother demanded a fully gluten-free classroom even though her son had no diagnosis, no allergy, and no medical restriction. She claimed he suffered from ambient gluten fog just by being near sandwiches. The teacher had to explain that airborne bread sadness was not a recognized educational barrier. She still wanted 24 other kids to reorganize lunch around her theory. Number 59. Desk forts are apparently no longer disruptive because one set of parents saw genius in plywood energy. When a child kept building elaborate forts under his desk during class, his parents did not apologize. They proudly described it as advanced architectural talent and asked the teacher to provide better materials and more space. The teacher had to explain that math class was not a small-scale fortification grant program. They still wanted innovation funding under the desk. Number 60. The sun itself finally got dragged into a parent complaint, which feels inevitable in hindsight. One mother was furious that natural light through the classroom windows created glare on the board and demanded museum-grade UV filtering smart tint glass throughout the building. She rejected the idea of simply lowering the blinds because it felt too low-tech. The school had to explain that they were a public school, not a climate-controlled art exhibit. Number 61. Not being selected as a field trip volunteer apparently now counts as emotional persecution. One mother was furious she was not picked to chaperone and accused the teacher of personal exclusion, favoritism, and anti-PTA bias. The teacher had simply drawn names from a hat. She still treated random selection like a targeted social exile and acted as though the school had sabotaged her relationship with educational destiny. Number 62. Class pet deaths have now entered the grief industrial complex. After the classroom hamster died of old age, one parent complained that the teacher's gentle conversation about loss was not enough and demanded a formal memorial, grief counseling, and the trauma-informed bereavement guide for families. The teacher had to explain that Nibbles was a hamster, not the principal. She still wanted a full mourning infrastructure for rodent closure. Number 63. Simplified diagrams have become suspicious to people who miss the point of simplified. One parent complained that a teacher's water cycle chart was dangerously inaccurate because it did not include municipal filtration, and he said this could encourage children to drink puddles. The teacher had to explain that educational diagrams highlight key concepts, not every plumbing detail in civilization. He still treated evaporation as a gateway to public health collapse. Number 64. Apparently, even a teacher's lunch is now a matter for oversight. One mother saw a teacher eating leftover pizza at her desk and filed a complaint, claiming it promoted poor nutritional choices and set a bad metabolic example. She requested a dietary audit of the teacher's future lunches. The school had to explain that educators are adults, not public service vegetables. She still acted like one slice had compromised the moral authority of homeroom. Number 65. Some parents really think literature class needs a casting director. One mother complained that the teacher's read-aloud voice was too monotone and claimed it was draining all life from the text. Her proposed fix was mandatory evening acting lessons, so the teacher could develop more dramatic range. The teacher had to explain that he was teaching high school English, not auditioning for a regional theater. She still reviewed his narration like disappointed critics do. Number 66. Partner work keeps offending parents who raised tiny CEOs. One father complained that his son should not be assigned a classroom partner because he, quote, works best as visionary leadership and should not have to compromise with peers on shared tasks. The teacher had to explain that collaboration is part of school and life. He still treated ordinary teamwork like the suppression of a startup founder in khakis. Number 67. Whistles are apparently now a form of sound-based dominance. One parent complained that the teacher's recess whistle was too sharp, too commanding, and too symbolic of control. She wanted a gentler recall method that preserved the children's autonomy while still gathering them efficiently. The teacher had to explain that a whistle works because children can hear it across a playground. She still viewed one shrill blast as authoritarian audio branding. Number 68. Some parents expect volunteer opportunities to operate like a loyalty rewards program. One mother insisted she should have been automatically chosen for every class event because she had already invested emotionally in the school year. The teacher had to explain that volunteer spots are limited and rotated. She still treated fairness like betrayal and acted as if not being front and center at every event was a campaign of deliberate maternal erasure. Number 69. The final boss of parent complaints is still the woman who filed the complaint because a teacher sneezed without saying "excuse me" to the empty corner of the room. She genuinely believed the unsaid apology had offended the classroom's guardian spirit and disrupted the spiritual harmony of the space. The principal had to explain that the teacher had covered her mouth and turned away. She still treated ghost etiquette like a core professional standard, from parents fighting lined paper and lowercase letters to full-blown outrage over dinosaur lessons, old books, and spiritual sneeze protocol. This was not education. It was adult nonsense with backpacks nearby. Which complaint was the absolute dumbest? Drop the number in the comments, hit like, and subscribe for more people losing arguments with basic reality.